All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. We are at the top of the hour, so get this kicked off. This is 30-minute Thursdays with AccomplishedRE, and today's topic is 5 steps to less stress. So we all have stress in our daily lives, personally, professionally, work, families. So this is going to be applicable to a lot of those situations. We are going to use most of my work is in the real estate field, so there will be some real estate type examples, but it is applicable to most situations that we come across each day, as unfortunately stress is all too common in all facets of our life. So how today's webinar works: it's confidential and private. Obviously, it's being recorded. The recording will be shared, but this is going to be shared out. If you have any comments, questions, the Q&A box, raise your hand. That comes directly to me. I can answer any questions during the webinar, but generally I'm not great at checking that during, so I will usually save those for the end. And everything comes only to me, so no worries about anything being intercepted or any cold emails, spam, anything like that. Everything during the webinar stays in the webinar. So if you have questions, please feel free to reach out. So who is today for? So 2 steps. 1, you want less stress, and who doesn't? So that's probably all of us. The second part is you're willing to leverage a 5-step framework to get there. So that is not always everybody. I don't have the time. I don't have the patience. I don't know what they are. Well, the steps that we're going to go over are fairly straightforward. They can be used, again, in almost any situation. And it is not meant to add more time, but to put in place a solution or eliminate that stress so it doesn't come back. It's not a new stressor. It's a better situation or a better end result for you. So you've got the stress. How do you resolve it? We're going to talk about 5 steps as a way to get there. So the outcomes from today's workshop. 3. So we already talked about it. You're going to identify what's actually causing your stress, what the actual stress is, the problem, the obstacle, the opportunity, the challenge, whatever you want to call it. There's lots of fancy terms, but really it's stress. It's what's causing me the headache, and why it's important to identify why it's actually happening, or what the stress actually is. What is the problem? Why is it happening? Limit the unintended stressors. So if we put a solution in place or we think we fix it, have we actually created something else? We want to limit that situation, and we want to stop our initial problem or the initial headache from coming back. So that's what we hope to get out of today's workshop. So our goals for today's webinar. These are very similar to the How to Achieve Time, Location, and Financial Freedom webinar that some of you may have attended with me in the past. And the reason for that is stress, problems, headaches are one of the biggest obstacles in achieving these top 2 bullets in our businesses and probably the goals in our lives as well. So I leave them front and center because if we can eliminate or at least limit the stress, we will be able to achieve these. So first, increase profitability. How, not necessarily make more money, but how can we do things more effectively? And the effective things that we're doing, can we do them more efficiently? And the way to do that is to take the stress off our plate. All with the idea that we want to add time, add freedom, location-wise, and then financial to our plates, making the decisions we want to make, do the things that we want to do. Reducing stress, solving problems, eliminating challenges. These are all interchangeable words, so we'll think of stress, problems, headaches, all in the same today. I use the example of a transaction treadmill when talking to my real estate clients, that you are basically set up in a business that you have to reinvent the wheel every time you have a new client or every time you have a new deal. It goes really well. Find a client, have them find a property they want to purchase, go through the closing process, close, and then back to step 1. What we talk about there is having a robust system in place where you're constantly attracting clients, you're constantly converting possible leads, and the clients that you are servicing them with world-class client experiences. So how can you get off of a transaction treadmill or a stress-induced wheel, if you will, is to have multiple balls in the air and be able to manage those things. So with that will come stressors. How do we get rid of them? In general, the clients I work with, they are looking to grow, scale, or remove themselves from their business. And just like you are obviously looking at a way for improvements, in our case today, to remove headaches or stressful situations from work or home, you likely want to do things at a higher level. You want to do things more, the things you want to do more often, or ideally, if they are situations that you do not need to be involved in, how can you extricate yourself from that situation? The last few bullets here. In general, we want to look at ourselves as a business, and a business that's not impacted or not directly tied to the market. Market swings, when we talk about real estate, market is cyclical. It's up, it's down. If your business solely relies on market performance to how it does, for example, market is good, I sell a lot of homes, or market is cooling, therefore I'm going to have a bad quarter, your business is always going to be at the mercy of how the overall market is performing, and your chances of time, location, and financial freedom are going to be quite diminished, and it's going to cause much more stress in your day-to-day, in your personal and your work life. So you need to run a business that is not directly tied to the market and that is greater than the market. And the first step in that is looking at what you do, your job, as not just a job, it's your profitable business. How do you keep it profitable? How do you get the things done that you want to do? And that stems from a mindset that I'm doing a great job already, but I can always improve. I can always get better. There is always a place to go, always an up. That I have not reached my pinnacle. This is one of those things that if you think that you can do better, you can. And if you think that you can't do any better, you are the best, you're probably right. There is nowhere for you to go because that closed mindset will really hamper moving forward in a positive way. So a little bit about me. This is my same slide I use in all of my webinars because it's important to know why the hell should we listen to you, or what are you going to talk about that would be of value to me. So for me, I fell into a real estate job. I didn't have any experience, but day one, I'm on the phone with real estate professionals around the country, talking to them about their investments, their property, and what's going on in their market. And so, I really liked it from the beginning, but I didn't really know what I was talking about. And although sales was not in my title, I realized from those phone calls that although I wasn't selling a service or product, I was selling that conversation. I was trying to give them a reason to talk to me and to have a relationship with me. So in one way or another, we're all in sales. We're selling something, whether it's ourselves, product, service, a mutually beneficial relationship, all of those things. So in any of that, we are going to encounter problems, headaches, people that don't want what we are selling. So how can we eliminate or reduce some of that stress? I've spent time in corporate, legal roles, and continuous improvement has always been, and not always, took me a while to get there to realize its value, front and center for me, that I work at my best every day and understanding that I can do things better tomorrow than I am today. How can I get there? So I view what I do in an entrepreneurial light. I look at it as a business, and I've got three prongs to that business. I'm a real estate attorney here in Massachusetts, so I help residential clients buy and sell property. In that same vein, I'm a broker associate with eXp Realty, work with great real estate agents across the country and really internationally with eXp. And then I'm a director at AccomplishedRE. That's my baby. That's my real estate coaching and consulting business. And my mission there is to work with real estate agents on increasing their profitability through running a better business and looking to achieve time, location, and financial freedom. And the tie-in and all that is generally what stops us from reaching those pinnacles is problems, stress, challenges in our business. So one way to combat that, what I do and what I work with my clients on, is cultivating, creating, leveraging multiple revenue sources. So that can mean different types of business like I have, or that can mean different ways of doing the things that you're already doing. Are there untapped markets? Are there areas that perform better one way or another? And how are you exploring those things? How are you cultivating or creating those sources? So approach and expectations, very similar again to other workshops because this is important for the way that I structure these talks. So strategy and logistics. We talk high level, big picture, goals. But we also talk about the logistics, the how-to, the tactics, the step-by-step. You need both. You can't just do one and not the other. Otherwise, you'd either be talking big, lofty things and never get anything done, or would be stuck in the weeds all the time. So try to keep a balance of those things. As you can see, production value not all that high, but I try to keep the content valuable and keep it accessible to anybody who wants to watch it. I keep these two Jarek Robbins quotes because I love them. It helps me focus when I'm putting together what I want to talk about in these workshops. First is learn, live, give. The idea that we learn something, we understand it, we implement it, we test it out, we try to break it, we make mistakes, and then we teach it to somebody else. We give it to them. Same for the foundation of win and help win. I've had success doing this. I'm at this level of my career, in my personal life. How can I help you do the same thing? Whether you're behind me in terms of tenure, success level, profitability, whatever it is, help somebody get to that next step that's where you are. And ideally, somebody's helped you along the way. These bottom three really important to me directly. I am a huge proponent of believing that there is a way for all of us. One size fits all works for absolutely no one. I believe that in my core. That if you think there is just the way, the only way, this way or the highway, you're setting yourself up for failure. That there is a way that we can construct a favorable path forward for ourselves. And it needs to be, if not unique, very specific to our set of circumstances, which takes us to our next bullet. If you are looking to model your personal, your professional career after somebody else who's done it before you, kind of that win and help win, or that I'm going to do what you did so I can reach the same level as you did, that's only going to work to a certain level, because that person likely had unique circumstances to them, or specific circumstances to them at that time they were undertaking that endeavor. They might have had resources available to them, whether that's their network, their family, money, timing, all of those. They might have had experience in a related field. Whatever it is, those circumstances help compel their success forward and help them on their way. So you can try to duplicate it, but you need to have your own way. You can't just do what they did and hope to have the same results. And in that vein, I've got systems here. I've learned in my 20 years that people do not like talking systems and process. I didn't. I thought it was boring. I thought it was for, basically people who didn't know what they were doing. Hey, what do I need to do? I need to follow these 4 steps. Well, systems, all they do is they help take out the guesswork, and they give us a formula to have a predictable outcome. That's what we want in all of these things. So we want to hit a target more often than not, and we can do that by following similar steps. It's not going to work in every situation, and we're not going to be able to forecast exactly what happens, but if we do similar things, we know that we've got a much greater likelihood of hitting these predictable outcomes. I'll always get asked, are you a systems or a results guy? And I think you have to be both. That's the only answer there, that you have to have a process in place, but you also need to keep in mind where you're going with the results and tweak your process and look at what your results are to get to the right targets. And we'll talk a lot about that. About that today a lot as well. So I just have this quote in here. Education, great. It's great to talk about these things, but if you don't put it into practice, it's really not all that useful to you. So we're talking about stress relief today. So ideally, this 5 steps can be implemented once this workshop is over, and you'll get a better idea of how to solve problems. I'm going to try to weave in a couple real-life examples, some highlights that will show what we're talking about. So AccomplishedRE, again, that's me. That's my business. I work one-on-one with real estate agents, helping them achieve freedoms from their business. They want to work where they want to work. They want to work when they want to work. And they want to be able to know they've got those predictable outcomes as far as income. So that's what we do. And a big piece of that is removing challenges from their businesses. And again, challenges, problems equal stress. So that's why we've got those flowery terms sometimes, but really it's just stress. It's a headache. We're going to talk about it, removing in 5 steps. And again, strategy versus logistics. Think big picture, where do I want to go, as well as how do I get there. I'm going to try to hit on both, and you're going to need to do the same to have levels of success. So this is a slide from my Freedom Workshop. So you might look familiar, but it's the challenge elimination slide. And these are the 5 steps that we're going to talk about. We're going to go into each one in detail of what we want to look at, why they're important, and what are we doing currently that might help us reduce some stress, and what are we overlooking, or what are we not valuing enough. And in that, kind of looking at that, I've got the step 1 and step 4 highlighted, because unfortunately that's what most people do. They have a situation that this stinks, this is causing me a headache, this is stressful, what can I do to eliminate it right now? So they just jump to 4. Sometimes it works, sometimes it causes a bigger headache, so we might not even realize it for a day, a week, a year down the line, or it may not even solve the actual problem stressor that we have. It might just be addressing a symptom, and we'll talk about why that's important. So there are 5 steps here. So unfortunately, most common in business and personally, we've got a problem. Hey, I've got a problem. How can I fix it? That's important, and sometimes it'll work, but we need to have these 5 considerations. You're not going to need to spend a set amount of time on each, because this specific situation will dictate what each step should look like. But if you have this framework, it'll help you reduce that stress in pretty much any setting where you are encountering problems or challenges. So we start with the situation. And I'll jump into the next slide here, and then we'll kind of talk about it. So the situation is understanding what is my headache, and why is that important? Because in an example I'll show why solving the wrong headache is going to just cause you additional ones. But how do we do that? We ask questions, just like we learn when we were kids. Who, what, where, when, how. What is the actual current situation, the current headache that's causing me a problem? Is this happening now? Has this happened in the past and I'm just speculating, or is this possibly going to happen in the future? Ideally, not for us in the moment, we want to solve the problems, the stressors that we have right now, that they're actually happening, that we can ask those questions so we know who it's happening when these people are in the room. What's happening? This is the situation. Or how is it occurring? Well, these are the factors that lead into so answering those questions, the who, what, when, where, and how. It doesn't always have to be all of them, but that's where we want to start. And then how can we define this current situation to somebody who might not be living it? How can we objectively describe it to somebody who's not on our team, not in our house, not in our company, and say, oh, that's a problem. That's a headache. That's really stressful. So you've got an idea of, okay, this is causing me real problems. This challenge is keeping me from where I want to go. What do I do now? And this is where a lot of us go wrong. We will jump right to the solution. But we need to understand the reason for what's happening. Because if we don't understand the reason, we can solve the wrong problem. We might be solving a symptom of the problem. So I'll go into an example here. Some people know it. It's kind of famous in the lean continuous improvement circles, but it really helps illustrate this point. So back in the 80s or so, the Lincoln Memorial in D.C. was having an issue that the marble at the memorial needed to be replaced more frequently than marble should be. Marble is a very expensive stone, so you don't have to replace it too often. So the folks in charge of maintaining the memorial saw that the marble cost was really exceeding what it should have been. So they just replaced it a couple times because they said, okay, we obviously have low quality. We're spending more and more on replacing the marble and not actually getting a better result. They couldn't figure out why. So in looking for the reason, they found out, it's actually the harsh cleaning solution that we use that eats through the marble. That's why I have to replace it. Okay, can we just change the cleaning solution then? Well, actually no, because the cleaning solution we use is very specific because we have a lot of bird droppings. Apologize for the visual there, but it helps our story. We need to clean it with this. This is the only cleaner that works. So although it is harsh and abrasive on the stone, we need to use it because of the bird dropping. Okay, are these birds only... is this a Maryland, D.C. issue? Is this specific to where we are? No, not really. They're actually all over. Okay, so then why do we need to use it here on this marble and not in other areas? Well, we actually found out that there's a certain insect, a midge, that flies in the area and that the birds like to eat. That's why they're here. Okay, same question. Are the insects here because it's specific to where the monument is, where the memorial is? Nope, they're all over as well. Okay, actually, in digging down, they found out that the lighting that they had at night, so they could be night viewing, attracted the insects at a high level. Birds came to eat the insects, dropping, cleaning, so forth. So it wasn't actually a marble issue. The reason for their problem was the types of lighting they used. So they actually switched up the light bulb, switched when they put the lights on and off, and boom, the marble was fine. So instead of just having that high cost of replacing the marble, they found out that it was actually a lighting issue, much lower cost, but they needed to drill down and figure out that reason. So what's wrong? What is the actual situation? In that example, it's that there was lighting that was bringing in insects bringing the birds, and so forth. And they found out by asking why multiple times. And much like a child, why, can you do this? Why? Can you go do that? Why? You ask why not once, twice, 3 times, 10 times, as many times as the situation dictates. So in my other workshop, I'll tell a story of an open house where I did not properly fix a leaky pipe. And if I had simply asked why a couple times, I would have drilled down and understood the reason for my wet floor, that it was a pipe and not just water on the floor. And you want to be sure that you want to solve for the right problem. So using that example, do you want to solve the leaky pipe or just wipe the water off the floor? Because the pipes can keep leaking. So you want to make sure that you know the reason for what's wrong. And it's as simple as drilling down, understanding the why or the root cause of your headache or your stress. So situation, what's going on? The reason, why is this happening? Then we want to define a target, where we want to be. And that's the where we're going. This is where I'll tell my last example, my last story. I had a client a couple years back. I won't use names to keep that client and their client confidential, but they were working with a seller who wanted to list their home, I believe, in the high 8s, 879 or 899. And my client thought that the house should be priced somewhere in the 7s. They couldn't come to an agreement. They said, well, all right, we'll put it on the market for high 8s. And that was very important. So they did. And then long story short, the house didn't sell. And the reason that the house didn't sell was because it was overpriced. So sellers frustrated because the house has been on the market longer. This was a couple years ago. So houses stayed on the market longer than they should have. The agent was frustrated because he was doing all he can to bring traffic, to bring possible buyers. But same thing, house is too expensive, house is too expensive, house is too expensive. And when they actually sat down, I think 60 days afterward, to inspect what was going on, the reason that the house was set at the price was not because it was what the owners valued it at, it was what their walkaway number needed to be. And the reason, without getting into many details, was that that's what they needed for their expenses in their next home, and they were leaving town and so forth, and what they thought they needed for their lifestyle going forward. So long story short, my client, the agent, brought in the financial advisor of the sellers, and they discovered, hey, we can also just cut expenses that you have in your day-to-day. I think they actually were leasing a high-end vehicle that they either just traded in or they just got rid of altogether because they didn't need it for where they were going. Said, well, we can now price the house where it belongs, where the market tells us its value is, and your walkaway number no longer needs to be as high as it is because it was impacted by something that was unrelated to the sale of the house. So long story short, their target was way off because they had the wrong set of facts. So what you want to do when you have a stressful situation, when you have a headache, understand why it's happening, and then clearly define where you want to go, where your target, where your solution should get you. The easiest way to do that, I'm not a big fan of acronyms or cute things like SMART, but as far as goal setting, this one's a helpful place to start. Specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. So you don't need all those things, but think about it when you're setting where you want to go. How can I define it? Again, how can I explain to somebody who's not in my situation? Somebody who's unaware of all the headaches that are going on. And then think of your target and your current situation. What's the gap between? What do I need to do to get from point A to point B? How do I get there? What does that distance look like? And then the greater the distance, how much effort, what kind of resources and so forth is going to be needed to get from A to B? So that's when you're going to work on your solution. And for any of you, again, who have attended my prior workshops, these steps here, in step 4 and 5, the solution and aftermath, are really my strategy framework. So the first thing you want to do is prepare. You want to get the right stuff. What I mean by that is have the right people working on a plan, the right resources, the right location, so forth. The way to think about it at home is actually even work is a better example. If you've got managers and chief executives working on a problem that they're looking to solve, but the problem is happening on in the warehouse where they never even step foot, they have no idea what it's like in that room. They have no idea what it's like to be the people there. They are only hearing second and third hand. So you need people actually encountering the stress or encountering the headache, encountering the problem, to work on the plan to solve it. And when you're planning, what you want to do is you want to create multiple options, compare benefits, cost analysis, which would be better, and evaluate them. Say, all right, here's our 3 possible plans forward. This one seems the most likely because I'm using different ways to evaluate them, and this is how we want to solve our headache. And you don't need a lot of time in each of these, but you want to be cognizant that I have the right people who are decision makers. Here's my right plan, and I'm going to start performing. And performing just means I'm going to put my plan into place, what I need to do to execute. So step 5 is the aftermath. What happens after I start performing? And the last example I'll give here is our stress or headache. This one's a home example. For anybody with small children, you know that sometimes parenting can be difficult. And if you want your child to listen to you, stop throwing a fit, you might have a plan in place where, I'm going to be stern this time. We're going to say, if this happens, if you don't stop crying, you're going to go right to your room. And all of a sudden, they might throw even bigger fit. It's like, okay, well, that backfired. So maybe instead of being stern, I need to put in a different message. So I go back to my plan. What am I going to do? What am I going to say? How am I going to deliver it? I'm going to perform again. So once we start putting that solution in place, what unintended consequences, what other things did we not foresee start coming into place? So this is our second part of performance. How can we put something into place that solves both that original headache, the problem we were looking to get rid of, and then doesn't cause us additional headaches or worse problems? Make sure that it's actually helping the situation that we want to and not one of those symptoms. And that's where this review and remodel come in. Very overlooked, very often done because we think, all right, solution, great. Nothing else to do. But that's not always the case. We need to review and see, is there any unintended consequences that are creeping in that we didn't account for, that we should have either accounted for in the planning part, or that we need to go back and do something a little different. And same with remodel and repeat. If we're doing something different, let's remodel that plan, perform and execute in a way that addresses those things. So these 5 steps, well, they're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Think of them more of as a cycle, as you may bounce from 1 through 5 multiple times, but you want to get to a target or result that actually eliminates what you wanted to eliminate and brings you to an ideal, if not ideal situation, a better a place than you were when you began. And it's going to be different timing, different levels of effort to get there, but this is the framework that will help you get there. Some best practices when using these 5 steps is to think about in terms of better, not best. You want the situation to be better, to be improved, that you may want to have the best possible outcome, but more than likely it's going to take multiple attempts. So you may not get to the best, but you want to continually improving it and addressing it and make sure that it's working for you effectively and that it's getting the results you want. So you don't always have to hit best or have to perfect. And that kind of goes with the third bullet there, that you want to be deliberate, you want to be using the framework, using the 5 steps, but you don't want to put it off and never do it because you need it to be perfect. So just trying to have a better situation than you currently have. How can I make this less stressful for me in 5 minutes, in five days, in whatever time period? We want to just make it better. If you're always trying for best or perfect, it will be really difficult and it may stop you from acting at all. So you want to get action, you want to get started, and you want to get toward better. And as you start using this framework more often, you'll see that the more that you do it, the easier the steps become. The last slide has a bunch of resources, including these templates, frameworks that are free for you to check out to see how you can implement some of these things. Just quickly, high level. Ladle exercise is really good, something I do with all my clients. We talk about L, what they love to do, and then ADLE, what do they automate, what should they automate, delegate, limit, and eliminate from their business. And then once we get through all those categories, look at what's left. What's left for you to do that you can't automate or get off of your plate, but that you don't necessarily love to do either. How can you put a system or something into place that makes it work for you? So each of these tools, check them out. We'll go over ways to take stress, take problems off of your plate, make them less of a stressful, less of a headache going forward. The Move the Needle Matrix and the Priority Index help look at impact and effort, what's most impactful, what's going to take the most resources, time from you for solving, and what's of greatest impact to you personally or your business. And then the last 2 more business-oriented, quarterly business assessment. That's the standard set of questions to look at each quarter to make sure your business is trending in the right direction. And then weekly 515. This is just a weekly review of here's what I set out to accomplish this week. Here's what actually happened. Here's what went well. Here's what didn't go as well. Here's what went off plan. Here's why. The 515 stems from 15 minutes to put together at max, 5 minutes to review at max. So that way, if you want to look back 1 week, 1 month, 1 year, you can know this is what I wanted to do. This is what I actually did. Why, or why not. These are our 5 steps. Again, in summary, just showing that it's not just a situation or a stressful problem and then a solution, that there are 3 other steps that we need to implement in order to have a likely positive outcome. So what's next? Check out the QR code link here. There's a bunch of the resources that we talked about, a bunch of other things that help in fortifying this 5-step process, as well as the strategy template in making things more smoothly, because regardless of how much we prepare and plan, we are always going to have stressful situations and things are going to pop up that we could not have forecasted, that are not predictable. So we're going to need the ways to eliminate them when they come up. And this framework helps a lot of the time. Think 80% that these 5 steps will help, 8 times out of 10. Let me see if there's any question. All right, we do have one question here. This is from Amy. Amy is asking, well, how do I get this at work when my boss is not interested in what I have to ask? So what I have to ask, what my problems are. So a kind of easy, well, not even easy, a way to think about this is that to show that why would it be valuable for someone you work with to implement something like this? If they're solving the problems that are occurring for you, for your team, and they have no idea, how can you demonstrate to them that that your input is valuable, B, why are they trying to do that? Going back to the root cause. Is it something that they've had success in the past? Is it that they've never considered that this is happening to you and your colleagues? Or is it something they just, unfortunately, may not value what that their teammates, their colleagues are telling them? So do you need to, if you can't demonstrate, it's something that you and your team can work on solutions and then bring it to upper management if that's the case, and say, hey, this was a problem for us. This is how we solved it. And these were the resources we had available. Here's how we could solve it. If we work together, there's other solutions in place. Just showing that you've thought about these things, that you've got a way to move it forward in a collaborative manner. So that will take us to the end of today's session. Thank you, everyone, for joining us live. Thank you for watching this live recording later. If you have any questions for me directly, feel free to reach out, and I appreciate it. Have a great day, everyone.